Good morning, brothers and sisters. Last week, I spoke to you about the freedom that the Lord wants to give us about being anxious about money. And of course, right now, we're experiencing a tremendous anxiety in the whole world about what's going to happen economically. The whole world is kind of closing down in many of its major industries, many of its major businesses. People are getting laid off. The unemployment rate is going up here in North America. Uh, a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are living from paycheck to paycheck, and it's really a tough time. And last week I spoke about the tremendous promise that Jesus makes to us, Luke chapter 12, where Jesus says, don't be anxious about anything. Unbelievers are always worried about what they're going to eat, what they're going to drink, what they're going to put on, what the future is going to bring. But I say to you, seek first the kingdom of God and his holiness, and what you need will be provided as well. God our Father knows that we need food and drink. He knows that we need what we need to live, and he promises us that everything that we need to fulfill our purpose in this life, everything we need to accomplish his will, even in a time of a global economic turndown, he's going to give us. Now, this week, I'm going to talk about some of the more practical wisdom that some of the great doctors of the church, some of the great saints give us about money. Well, John of the Cross has some really interesting things to say. He says, even though King David was manifestly rich, he says he was poor because his will was not fixed on riches, and he thereby lived as though really poor. On the other hand, had he been actually poor without his will being so, there would have been no true poverty because the appetite of his soul would have been rich and full. So what John of the Cross is saying is that it's really not a matter how much money you have or how little money you have. It's a matter of where your heart is. Is your heart fixed on the kingdom? Is your treasure in the kingdom? Is your desire to rely on the Father for your provision? Is that where your heart is? Because he says even poor people can be very attached to riches, and very rich people can be not attached to riches. It's a matter of the heart. And then he goes on to say, Bernard of Clairvaux goes on to say, speaking of wealthy disciples of the Lord, they do possess earthly things, but with the spirit of men who possess nothing. In reality, they possess all things, not unlike happy beggars who get what they beg for, but as masters in the best sense because they're devoid of avarice. Now, Francis de Sales has a lot of wisdom about how to handle money also, and how to actually test our hearts to see whether we're detached or not in the appropriate way from riches. During this time of global shutdown, during this time of self-quarantining and staying in place and only traveling for essential services like groceries and pharmacy and things like that, it's really a time for us to take stock. We're being forcibly detached from all kinds of things. And what that's going to do, what that's hopefully are doing already, is making us kind of see where should our trust be, where should our peace be, where should our love be. In our neighborhood, I see all kinds of families out taking walks that I never even knew lived in the neighborhood. I see all kinds of dogs being taken out for a walk that I never knew lived in the neighborhood. So you can already see that there's a certain silver lining in families spending more time together and animals getting more exercise and just all kinds of things like that. But it's really, we're being forcibly detached from things. We're being forced to take a look at our life. And here's one of the things that Francis de Sales says about how do we really know where our heart is? How do we really know whether money has its rightful place in our life? So he says, you can possess riches without being poisoned by them. Incidentally, I'm reading from the book, The Fulfillment of All Desire, a guidebook for the journey to God based on the wisdom of the saints. It has the best wisdom the Catholic Church has. I put it together, but it isn't my wisdom. It's the wisdom of the Church. And if you're looking for some really good spiritual reading right now, this would be a really good book to get. You can get it on Amazon.com. You can get it at renewalministries.net. So it's called The Fulfillment of All Desire. And it's a tremendous collection of the wisdom of the saints. You'll see, we're sharing it right now. So Francis de Sales says, you can possess riches without being poisoned by them if you merely keep them in your home and purse and not in your heart. To be rich in effect and poor in affection is a great happiness for a Christian. By this means he has the advantages of riches for this world and the merit of poverty for the world to come. I willingly grant that you may even take care to increase your wealth and resources, provided this is done not only justly, but properly and charitably. Now, Francis points out that one of the sins listed in the many lists of sins in the New Testament that we don't tend to notice very often is the sin of greed. For example, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, a passage that I quote often concerning the confusion about the seriousness of sexual immorality in the world today, Paul says, do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Don't let anybody deceive you. Neither the sexually immoral, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor homosexuals, active homosexuals, not those who are tempted, nor thieves, nor the greedy. Whoa, the greedy. And there's even a passage later on in Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, where it says, Paul says, be on your guard against covetousness or greed, which is a form of idolatry. So money can take a role of like God in our life if we're not careful. So St. Francis de Sales gives us some very practical questions to ask ourselves to see where our heart is and whether it's in the right place concerning money. This is what he says. You are truly greedy or avaricious if you longingly, ardently, anxiously desire to possess goods that you do not have, even though you say that you would not want to acquire them by unjust means. Now, this next thing is very relevant today. He says another test to see where our heart is this. If you find your heart very desolated and afflicted at the loss of property, believe me, you love it too much. The strongest proof of love for a lost object is suffering over its loss. It's normal to be disappointed when resources that we think the Lord has provided for us are taken away in something like what we're experiencing right now. But if we're totally broken up about it, if we're totally preoccupied with it, if we totally feel like this is the end of the world and our security is gone and we're anxious about our future, we're loving it too much. And it's really an opportunity to become more detached in a right kind of way and recenter our heart on the Lord and the promise of the Father to provide what we need. I remember the words that Joe spoke, which are so true. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. And then Francis says another indicator whether our heart is in the right place, and this is the last one I'll mention, is generosity, no matter how much or how little we have. He says, nothing makes us so prosperous in this world as to give alms. Wow, that's kind of a radical statement. The key to prosperity, Francis is saying, is giving alms. Well, it's because Jesus said, give and it will be given to you, pressed down, flowing over. It will flow into your laps. So he says, nothing makes us so prosperous in this world as to give alms. So he's encouraging generosity as a sign of not being too attached to wealth. But until such time as God shall restore it to us, we remain the poorer in the amount we have given. So he says, giving isn't without pain. Giving isn't without the sense of loss. Giving isn't without an act of faith or a leap of faith that God's going to provide for us as we're helping provide for others. But he says that that's really a key to prosperity in this world. And finally, he says, another test of where our heart is, if you meet with losses that impoverish you either very much or a little, as in the case of tempests, fires, floods, droughts, we could put in global pandemics, thefts, or lawsuits, that is the proper time to practice poverty by accepting your losses meekly and patiently and by courageously submitting to such impoverishment. The humility, the trust, the letting go, knowing that everything we have has been given to us by the Lord, The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And all his actions are just, all his ways are true. Everything he permits to happen, even the things we experience as loss and negative, he has a plan for bringing good out of. And one of the goods he wants to bring about out of our current situation is a proper detachment from money, a proper trust in the Father's love, a proper concern for, even in the midst of our impoverishment, giving generously. Looking forward to next week. I'm looking forward to Easter Sunday.